Sorry, yeah, I've just seen the Into the Blue Mister comment. WCC fans, Warwickshire County Council. No, it's Warwickshire Cricket Club. That's the ones you've got to keep an eye out for, because they can be very, very awkward. So yeah, I can appreciate that. But no, that's not who we're talking to, and that's not who we are inviting in to talk to our audience today. Hello there, everybody. If you got this notification, if you are now aware that we're live, that's because you are a subscriber to the channel. Thank you very much indeed for your support. As always, do what you can to hit the like button, hit the notifications. And something else I learned relatively recent, and I decided I wasn't going to actually mention it, but I'll just say it anyway. Do you know how the best way to monetize a YouTube channel? Click on the adverts. It's the last thing I do, but it's the thing that kind of gets views up on like the homepage of YouTube and stuff, and actually get some money in, because that's what YouTube are wanting you to do, is to click on the advert. I am not inviting you to click on an advert, by the way, just for this channel. That's a bad thing to advise you. But listen, thank you very much indeed for being a subscriber. We usually do this 5-minute warm-up just to allow everybody into the room and to welcome you along. I know we've got a whole bunch of people who are jumping in on the chat room already. A couple of regular faces. It's great to have you here. Andrew English is here. We've got Into the Blue Mister. Who's from the West Coast. Afternoon, everyone. Hey, welcome along. We've also got Omar Hasser in here. We've got Sarita P. We've got Michael P as well. Welcome, all welcome. Please do spread the link and let everyone know that we're going to be live in about 3 minutes time. As always, looking for your support on our Patreon page. We got a payment through about 3 weeks ago, and for that we got our SoundCloud updated. We got our Flickr account turned pro again, so able to get some high-res pictures up onto the website, and we also got our hosting sorted. In other words, everything that we do on an Englishman in San Diego and on the Convention Collective, we can't do it without you guys. So thank you so much indeed for our Patreon supporters. You can support from $1. You can go up to however much you feel that you want to can contribute and allow us to keep doing what we do. I really appreciate it. I do my best to kind of put exclusive content on the Patreon page first, and it is something I'm going to start doing a little bit more of in terms of exclusive to the Patreon page. I'm just trying to work out the best content I can get to you. Obviously, we're going to get a lot from San Diego Comic-Con. We're talking to a whole bunch of people already about some interviews. Dan Berry's going to be our man on the ground for that. And of course, if you want to share anything with us, by all means, do let us know. Any pictures, any stories, any panel recordings, anything at all that you want to send our way, we'll of course put it either on the Patreon page or on the website, and we'll spread it with the wider world, because of course in about 24 days the big show in San Diego kicks off. So yeah, we're going to be doing our best to bring you as much as we can from San Diego Comic-Con this year. Still a whole bunch of shows to go as well between now and then. Not so much on the big side. We've got a couple of the small ones as well. We did have a show here in the UK yesterday, which was MacPow in Macclesfield. Very quickly talk about that, because I attended as a panel host, which I was incredibly humbled and grateful for the invite by Mark Jackson, who asked me along to do a couple of panels, one with a cracking collection of creatives, which talked about self-publishing. So we had Hannah Berry on there, who is our UK's Comics Laureate, and we also had Rachel Smith as well. This is where her badge comes in, of a little cat from her recent work. So that was rather cool. And we also had Nick Brokenshire as well in a separate panel, which was a Skype one. So I'm used to talking to a camera, and I was doing it this weekend as well. So that was rather cool. Yeah, that's MacPow. You can find out more about MacPow at MacPow, MACCPOW.co.uk, and I really would recommend checking it out, because it was a small, family-orientated, free, very fun event, very well organized by Mark and the team. Really worth checking out. So yes, we're also going to be getting into a convention of a whole other scale, but we'll do that in a second, because we are now top of the hour, so we might as well just dive straight in. I've got a cup of tea ready and waiting right here, and hopefully you've got your beverage to hand as well. So welcome along. It's Sunday, it's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. which means this is Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. If this is your first time watching our show, thank you very much indeed for your company. We talk every Sunday about Comic-Cons, con culture, and all the stuff and nonsense that you get to enjoy at these shows. We basically celebrate those shows that celebrate the fandoms that we love, and that's what we do each and every Sunday. We do kind of get into San Diego Comic-Con news at the back end because that is the big show, and it is going to be like I say, 24 days to go. It's just over 3 weeks to San Diego Comic-Con. So a whole bunch of announcements that came out this week, including some stuff for off-site events and also some exclusive news that came new through as well. Don't forget as well, next weekend we're going to start getting the panel announcements official from CCI. We have been getting 1 or 2 teased panel dates already from the various hosts and guests as well, but it all gets official. It finally gets nailed down. That's next weekend, or from next weekend, when we start looking at that. So do join us next Sunday for Comic-Con panel stuff. But we might as well dive into this because then we can kind of let him get off and enjoy the rest of his Sunday. We have, now this is where I'm going to have to check. Is it Jamie or Jame?
It is Jamie, yes.
I have to check these things because you never know, because the spelling is slightly off from a traditional Jamie. But no, Jamie it is. We have Jamie Milner from Wales Comic Con joining us today as our special guest. Hello there, Jamie. Welcome along.
Hello, you're right.
I'm fine, thank you. Like I say, a little bit shattered from my convention bits and pieces, but it's been a lot. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can imagine for yourself as well. Even though you are some time away from Wales Comic Con, the Telford takeover, I mean, I can imagine, and you keep seeing all the announcements that are coming out of Wales Comic Con. It's continuing to build, and it's always this rolling news cycle with yourself, and I can imagine it's just non-stop, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's one of those things you can never really truly predict how it's going to look when the show comes around. Some people say, do you have the guest lineup in mind? Do you have an idea of what you want going on at the weekend? And I guess you do to an extent, but certainly as you go along the way, so many different opportunities arise and things like that some you just have to take advantage of, and some things fall into place and some things don't. Work commitments, personal commitments, whatever it may be. So yeah, we like to kind of just keep the interest flowing. You know what I mean? It's as you say, it's a long way. So to get to December and still announce things, that's the goal, certainly, just to keep the excitement there. But yeah, I'm pleased with how it's gone so far. It's a new thing for all of us. It's a new venue.
Well, tell you what, we'll get into that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's actually start pretty much from the beginning. This is Jamie Milner. So, I mean, let's start with your own kind of fandoms, I suppose. I mean, to kind of how you got into organizing a convention in the first place. I mean, what was your fandoms? Was it TV, films, comics? What kind of piqued your interest?
For me, I remember how I got to go to my first event because I was reading an SFX magazine and I saw an advert. It was a double-page spread for Showmaster's new event in the GMEX at the time, formerly GMEX. I believe it's called Manchester Central now. And they had all these pictures of celebrity guests that were coming. And Lord of the Rings is probably one of my favorites. And there was an exceedingly large amount of them there. I think Andy Serkis was there, John Rhys Davis was certainly there, Stella Baker, Shane Rangi, a few others. And I was just kind of, questioning, what is this? I'd never heard of it before. I'd never seen anything like this before. You can meet these people, you can go there and enjoy it. So you had, film, TV guys, comic artists, writers there, prop displays, and you see it and you kind of take it in awe. And we went there not knowing, honestly, what to expect at all. It was myself and a couple of friends from college at the time. And I was hooked. That was it. I was knee deep already. And then the day after, because we went on a Saturday together, and then the day after, I kind of weighed up the options and drove back on my own just to go and enjoy it again. And that was it. Ever since then, I was all over forums and social media and everything, trying to find out about different events in the UK. And I got really kind of engrossed into it. And yeah, I was attending them for many, many years then, avidly. Really enjoyed them, and that was it then, and I was hooked.
Yeah, it's one of those addictive things when you kind of go into a room full of people who have the same kind of level of passion. It doesn't necessarily have to be the kind of thing that you're into, but just the feeling of that level of intense fandom in the room. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
heady thing. It's a heady thing.
yeah. It was a little strange coming back trying to explain why I had a humongous double-headed axe from Lord of the Rings on my arm, amongst everything else. But that one was really difficult to explain. But
Well,
yeah,
I
you
mean,
go there and
if you go shopping in Wakefield around my neck of the woods, I mean that's standard stuff, really. But that's Wakefield
all
for
right,
you.
yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, okay, so I mean, you delved big onto the convention love, and that's all well and
Yeah.
good. But that's a whole other ball game to then turn around and say, you know what? Let's see if I can do this, because that's a level of commitment. That's something else. When did that kind of go into your head? I mean, you say you went to conventions for a couple of years. I mean, was it someone who came to you and went, "Well, you seem to be a regular face. You know how these work," or was it a case of you going, no, you know what? I want to try something here.
I remember. I'm trying to think how it pieced together in the timeline. I remember thinking to myself that nothing happened, certainly in Wales at the time, and nothing happened locally at all. You know, the nearest was Manchester, then it was Birmingham, and then Milton Keynes at the time. So for anyone kind of north of Birmingham, certainly there wasn't a great deal happening a lot of the time. Um, and I remember I was putting like graphics online that I'd edited and said this is like my dream lineup and stuff like that. And I put them on like forums of different other shows, you know, whether it's Showmasters or MCM, whatever. And I was talking with other fans, saying I'd love to see these guests. And you kind of ponder from that fan perspective, would they ever be considered? Are they too big? And you know, it went from Hollywood names like Kiefer Sutherland and that all the way down to like the voice actors from the X-Men cartoon. Ironically, we've just announced a load of them. So it was that, and then the decision was the kind of motivation to then go, well, can we do this? You know, do we do it? Is it just going to be Welsh people? Are we going to do that angle? That was one option we looked at. You know, have a Wales show with just Welsh actors, Welsh artists, Welsh writers, Welsh personalities. That was one option we weighed up at the start, and it just again, it was back to that prediction thing. You can't truly predict how it's going to go, and the first time certainly that you look into it, it's such a transition going from looking online to seeing how much like the autograph prices are and planning your day, and then going to an actor and saying, or an artist or a personality and say, hey, I'm putting on a show, would you be a guest? Because it goes from personal to business. um, so that was certainly an interesting transition, but it was just the motivation was there because nothing happened in the area where I'm from,
That makes sense.
related to it at all. We wanted to do that, and again, as we looked wider afield, there was nothing in Wales either. And I'd heard different stories from various guests at show saying people had tried and never succeeded in Wales, predominantly as well, citing all sorts of different reasons. And that was it. I picked it up, went to the bank, got a loan, and ran with it. And that was it. That was the first show, and it wasn't called Wales Comic Con back then. It was called the North Wales Film Exhibition, which I was corrected upon. Someone said, "It's not really an exhibition, is it?" And I said, "I think you're right." And then we looked at it, and everyone was called Film and Comic Con in the UK, or different other names. And then I saw in America it was just Comic Con. That was it, all over the big shows in America. And I was like, why are they doing that when we want to be so broad and bring everything together under the same banner as those over there? And that was it. And we literally sat there and went, Wrexham Comic Con, Wales Comic Con. I said, there's nothing else in Wales. That sounds greater as a brand and gives us more opportunity to expand later on. And that was it. That's what we went with, and the rest of
It's
the
interesting.
history.
It's interesting you say later on. It wasn't a one. It wasn't an idea for a one and done. It was an idea of an ongoing enterprise. Did you? Was it like 2 years, 3 years, and you think, okay, let's just see where we go with this, or what was your thoughts back then?
The start was difficult because I was working full time. You know, I was doing a full time day job. You know, amongst personal life and everything else. So I did that, and I was running the shows, and that was about 4 or 5 years. And yeah, we kind of looked at it, and we were doing the first few shows were one day. They were just one day, and that was it. And then the transition was to go to 2 days. Then the popularity grew, so it was like, hey, can you do 2 shows a year? And it's like, well, can you do 2 shows a year in Wrexham? Can it sustain that? And it just went on, and the expansion was ever growing, and that's where we've come today. And
well, I mean, well, let's just very quickly, because you haven't mentioned what year this was. I mean, just to kind of give you an idea of that curve. What was the year for the first one?
2008.
Wow. Okay. So, well, yeah, no, of course. 10-year anniversary. Of course.
Yep.
I should have remembered this. This is where I should have thought ahead. Absolutely, of course. You've just celebrated that anniversary. Now, when did you feel that then? Because it was an ongoing project. You'd done that first one. How many numbers through the door that first year?
The first show, it had to be around about 107 people through the door. And, we openly talk about it because it is amazing to go from that. And at the time, you see a lot of shows now and they get a lot more numbers. I mean, at the time, I think the predominant social media was MySpace. So we were advertising across that. So if you weren't already established, like the MCMs and the Showmasters, who had their audience, the core contingent of attendees from around the UK, certainly, people didn't really know about you at all. And shows were really small and didn't really take place outside of cities or anything. So to go and do it in a small to medium-sized Welsh market town, not even the capital, in a university, not a purpose-built venue, which again we'll probably touch on later on.
Yes, indeed.
It took a lot of guts, I think, and to stick with it, you've got to have a lot of determination, and it's been hard work. Good Lord, it's been hard work, but the fruits of the labor are there, given the lineups that we had and the numbers that we grew to eventually. So,
who was the headliner of that first one?
the first show headliner was Danny John Jules, who I messaged on MySpace, and we touched base. I was asleep late one morning of the weekend and got a phone call from an anonymous number I didn't know. And he went, "Hey, this is Danny John Jules." And I went, "No, it's not." And I put the phone down. And he called me back. And I was like, "This is Danny John Jules, isn't it?" And yeah, he never let me forget that moment ever since. And yeah, and I still speak to a number of the guests from that day. So there's Danny, Ian White was at the first show, Mark Silk, voice actor, Neil Edwards, obviously the artist local to Wrexham, and Kieran Shah, still good friends with all of those guys today, and they've been a number of times as well. So they remember sitting there when there was 10 people in a talk with empty chairs around, and now they see it, and it's just crazy. So
that's so cool. Okay, so that was 2008. So when did you feel that the show had reached a real kind of tipping point into becoming something truly special?
Oh goodness, it was probably, I think it was about 4 years after that, 4 or 5 years in, and so much had changed in those few shows. Again, even just being one-day events, and we got to the point where we were then having to rotate around the university. We'd been in the sports hall predominantly before that. That was it. There was nothing else. There was certainly no marquees. There was no photo studios. There was nothing at all like that. And we then thought, well, hey, why don't we hire that section out and put something there? So we then moved and had a talk hall implemented, one show. And then the show after that, I forgive me for not remembering the date. It was about 5 years in, and we'd taken the William Aston Hall, which was the big talk hall at the front, the theatre style room, and expanded across the venue. And that was it. When we rocked up and there was queues around the block, it just popped. It was kind of the start of essentially what was the UK boom for Comic Cons, because that about 5 years ago they just started popping up everywhere, and we certainly felt it and grew from it positively. And yeah, that was it. It was just a motor from there.
I mean, I speak to a number of convention organizers, and I do talk about the kind of like the natural growth of a convention, especially in today's landscape of, like you say, conventions popping up everywhere. And there is that risk of the whole thing becoming a bucking bronco and just threatening to throw you off. Has it ever felt like you just gone, okay, this is getting wild now?
I mean, it's always wild. People make it wild, you know. But yeah, it's trying to control that desire to run faster than you should do, because I'm sure, again, to refer to Showmasters MCM and Star Fury and other shows that have been running longer than we have, you know, they will have seen certainly much more than I. But even I've seen shows come and go, and nobody likes to see it. But it's learning to go at your pace, know your venue, your location, your audience. Once you've started going after a few shows, and just go at that pace. And at the moment, it's kind of like a gold rush, and everyone's really trying to go out there and throw like the biggest name they can find at a lineup, just to kind of entice people in. And I feel that our audience is a very loyal one, which, you know, is from years of great hard work, really. And yeah, they know that the goal is to put on the best show possible. That's the
Absolutely.
goal.
I mean, I can also imagine. I mean, this is a question that I do like to put to organizers of shows of your kind of scale. When it is getting to a really kind of, you're pulling in attendees from worldwide, you're really getting an amazing lineup of guests. But I can imagine certainly when you are developing to that size and you're getting your lineups together, there is that kind of that temptation to kind of get the headliner, that the headliners, and that can kind of dominate the rest of the show. How difficult is it to kind of balance things out and make sure that it's a broad spectrum of guests that you get through the door?
I think it's down to that knowing your audience, really. And every show you'll learn something new about the event itself, and again about the audience also. And we found this last show we went very, very top heavy. There was so many big names, and I know that I said I wanted to go bigger for that one. You always want to go, you know, the aim is always to try and expand. Why would you not want to be in business and expand? And yeah, it was a huge amount of names. We pulled it off, and yeah, we were pleased with it. Do we want to continue to do that? Of course, we want to bring the best names we can. I mean, we're talking in talks at the moment with some fantastic headline, or you would class as a headline name in inverted commas. But yeah, it's just trying to find that fine balance. And the other thing which I did find difficult, very, very difficult at the start early on, was learn to say no. It's very easy to fall into that trap of saying yes to everyone. You know, and then you've got a lineup which is 110 deep with a million, you know, of this and of that. So it's always just kind of learn to restrain yourself. Don't dive in. This is for people that I guess want to put on a show, and do some research. Certainly, do research on numbers, social media numbers for people. You know, just things like that, really. Because if you've got guests that say have 500,000 people on Twitter, and then you've got someone that's got no Twitter, who's going to help you with more exposure? You know, it's just little things like that. But yeah, no, the last show for me, it was hard work. It was a lot of hard work to pull that together. And again, it wasn't really, you know, contracts or stuff that we chased. It kind of came to us, and it was almost too good to sort of pass up the opportunity. Certainly with people like Rupert Grint, that was down to more of a timing. Really, he had a very small window of opportunity, and the agents came to us and said, you know, do you want him to be part of the show? And who doesn't want Rupert Grint to be a part of the show, kind of thing. And that was it. But it's, yeah, trying to find that balance it's certainly a difficult task. But I think those that find it are those are the ones that will last, basically.
Cool. We are going to be putting some questions forward. We have got one or two people that are coming through already. Thank you very much indeed for everyone who's diving in on the chat room. Anything that you want to put to Jamie, do let us know. We've got one or two people asking some questions, and we're going to get into certainly about Wrexham in a second. But before we do dive into that, I mean, I think we'll kind of wrap up that section of that the last 10 years of any particular highlights, because when I do speak to convention organizers or just even members of the team, at the end of the day, it's very difficult to enjoy your own party because you're kind of doing the party. Do you get the chance to kind of wander off and enjoy yourself at all?
I say to people every year, and some close friends say, "Did you get your poster signed? You know, did you get this? Did you say hi to this guy?" And you really don't. You're just so wrapped up into it, and a lot of my time is spent usually sort of located above the main signing hall, trying to be easy access in terms of guests and staff and that. And yeah, it's very difficult. I find it. I try to be very approachable and personal with everyone at the event, but I don't go chasing things like that. As much as I would love to get my Lord of the Rings stuff signed, I've missed out on so many now. And you kind of think, oh, I can bring them over, they'll do well, and I'll get that signed. Then you just don't, and then you're gutted forevermore. But it gives you another excuse to bring them back, I guess.
Fair enough.
No, my favourite moment was when we welcomed John Rhys Davis as a guest, who I'd met. He was the first guest I'd ever met at the Manchester show. So he was the first guest I'd ever met at conventions. And we went into his photo op, and I made a beeline to make sure I was there. That was the one time I had to be there. And I joined the back of the queue, and John didn't know. And then obviously he saw me when all the queue had gone. We had the photograph, and I said, "John, I just want to thank you." He turned around and he looked at me and said, "Why, dear boy?" And I said, "Because you were the first guest that I met. So in essence, you were one of the reasons that I went to the show. If you hadn't have been there, potentially this couldn't have all happened." And we embraced, and he gave me a big hug, and yeah, we've stayed in touch ever since. And
That's nice.
for me, that was a very huge moment. So
I've panel hosted for him. He is a joy to listen to. He is something else to just. It's great because all you have to do is just wind him up, and away he goes. He's an absolute firecracker. I adore him to death. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got ourselves a couple of people have got some questions, and obviously the core question is about Wrexham and the transition over to Telford. We'll start with just about Wrexham and about your kind of your relationship with the venue, and also those memories as well, because it is a formative part of what Wales Comic Con is. The question has come in from Into the Blue Mister. Was there any discussion between Wales Comic Con, yourselves, and the council about the possibility of whether they could expand that particular venue, basically accommodate you?
we went into a meeting, I think it was certainly last year, with the university and a few various other people from local entities about the university expanding. Now, that's been a plan that's been going through, separate to us anyways. It's nothing to do with us. Some of the plans were going to expand parts of the university. Some were going to knock parts down. No time scale other than that it was going to take place over a number of years. So that was part of the reason, there was a number of reasons which influenced the move. And that was part of it because, you just can't sit here on a date and say, hey, we're going to do Comic Con that weekend. And then all of a sudden, 3 months before, they turn around and say, well, we're cancelling all events. It would just be an absolutely impossible situation for us to deal with. Because I know from one aspect, one of the plans was to remove the AstroTurf where we had the marquees. They were going to put a car park there. Now the question arises, is there going to be lampposts? Is there going to be, shrubbery? Is there going to be landscape there? Is it going to be flat? Is it going to be accessible for us to put marquees on there straight away? So there's things like that which were in place. The council, now, we'd approached the council certainly in the very first year. We'd approached a number of times since then. We never got anything in terms of a great response. The official reply when we spoke to Welsh Government about funding at the time I get back, this was many years ago, was we've no idea what a Comic Con is.
Mhm.
We have no idea what section to put you under, where to look for funding for it, how to accommodate this, which is why we went out and we did everything ourselves. That is why we did it. In more recent times, a number of our team, one of our managers actually works at the council and had set up an option where they were looking at putting part of the budget for the event and potentially paying for one or part of the marquee, something to do with that. And they turned around and it was after 2-3 months of discussion and told us they'd spent the budget on the Welcome to Wrexham signs that they refurbed. So you can imagine how we felt. The expectancy then was just completely wiped from us, and it was back to doing everything we could. And that's why the only option really that we could get signed off with the venue, because it's not purpose built, is very much there's a lot of different hoops and stuff to go through. Certainly a lot more health and safety, which restricts you in terms of the location as well. And the marquees were the best possible option. At this show, we got absolutely battered by the weather. And unfortunately, this show was the turning point, which essentially opened your eyes to say how weather reliant the venue was. It always was, because it was the same venue, but we'd grown so much that we were now finding ways to try and accommodate it, and those ways were not up to standards of what certainly I would expect when I go to a show. And that again is part of the reason to move and go to essentially a purpose built venue. So
That's fair enough. I mean, certainly from the reports you hear, I mean, just to explain to the audience as well, I mean, certainly part of the conversation we've had on this show for the last couple of years is about the expansion of the San Diego Convention Center to accommodate San Diego Comic Con, which has wildly outgrown that building in much the same way you outgrow the university. So it's a case of encouraging that building to get bigger to kind of help accommodate the show. If you think that San Diego Council moves at glacial speed, forget the fact that it isn't a convention center. At the end of the day, it is a university. So you also have to deal with our education service here in the UK, which is even worse. So no, I can imagine that the pressures that put you under. So that then brings you on to the decision to move to Telford. The Telford takeover, which fair play, top branding. I really like the name. That's very, very cool. But I can also appreciate the fact that you are moving to a custom convention center. How's that changed the way that the convention works then? Because at the end of the day, they have more facilities for stuff like yourself. Instead of you dealing with a university building, you're now dealing with someone and a structure and a team that kind of know how to put events like yours on. So, I mean, how's that changed the dynamic of Wales Comic Con?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, it's become a lot smoother. We don't have to sit here and pore over creating floor plans ourselves. There's people that do there. There's someone that's sat there, and that is their job, to do floor plans for all the events. So we don't have to sit here with our software that you have to pay ridiculous money for and try and accurate everything in terms of spacing and lining. So they do it all for you, which is great. It's the event itself. Wales Comic Con grew as a brand, and what we didn't want to do was look at putting on a show in a new venue and losing that identity. Now it's not in Wales. Lo and behold, I get that. Hence the Telford takeover. And I spoke to someone, a guest, a fellow Welshman, and he said, I can't think of anything more amazingly Welsh than the Welsh invading England and doing something. I'm still Welsh. I still wake up in the morning and I'm pretty sure I'm still Welsh. The company is very much Welsh. It's not a kick in the teeth to Wrexham or Wales. It's a necessity from the event itself in terms of the growth and the expansion and the demand for it. There's an element of my health coming into it because I struggle to travel. So Telford would be 50 minutes down the road. Makes it easier to travel to Cardiff, for example. We've then got elements like housing the crew, where we got a lot of local crew, which would miss out if it goes further afield. You've then got travel links. Travel links from Birmingham are a lot easier than going to, say, I don't know, somewhere in North Wales where you take 2 hours to get from an airport. So there's different options like that. There's so many different elements, and we looked at venues around the place. We looked at Venue Cymru. We looked at the Motor Point. We looked at Newport, a few other places. You know, we've been offered places in Liverpool and other places like that. And without going too far, Telford was the right mix of the area, the location, what it gave us, and again, just for being able to get there for myself. And I don't want this to sound very selfish, but I said I don't want to have to put on a show where it's torture for me to get there. And you know, I think that was the one thing that I said, if we're going to do something, we're going to do something right. And the Wales Comic Con grew as a brand. It's a global brand now. You know, one of 2 that are verified on Twitter in the UK, I think. And people know the name. You know, people know the name all around the world. So if we did a new event with a different name, would you lose that? Would the audience transition over? So it's a little tongue-in-cheek with the Telford Takeover. To those eagle-eyed wrestling fans, it may or may not have been influenced a little bit from that aspect, because I am a wrestling fan. But I think it worked. And I think the initial uproar was a lot of local populace, because they're losing the event. And it went to the Welsh Government also, because they were losing a lot of revenue in tourism. And unfortunately, that was, you know, you weighed up all the options, and that was the best fit that we come up with, and we still think it is the best option right now. We're still in talks with the Welsh Government about options, because it was of that much value. But short of popping up a venue out of the box, we don't really know what the options are until it's going to be a long term plan. But there are talks in motion, because we've never said we don't want to be in Wales. We never said we won't go back to Wales. But at the moment, this is the right move for where the event is at, basically.
That makes sense. And it's not like you're moving to Hull or something. You are not deep in enemy territory. You are, I mean, I attended Comic Salopia in Shrewsbury, and driving there from Yorkshire, coming across, you kind of like dip in and out of Wales to get there. And Telford's right there. You can understand it's literally, it's on the border. It's right there. So I get it. If anything, however, I think there should be lots of Welsh flags flying. Just as when you go take over hard. I think that'll be very cool. You also have a question from we'll do a couple of these questions back to back. And you were saying there about the permanent element of doing the Telford takeover, and the question is it a permanent move? At this point, I'm guessing that's still very fluid.
Yeah, I mean, we're open. We've got stuff penciled in with the university. We've got stuff penciled in with Telford. We've got multiple things and dates penciled in across both parties. We're still very much very good relations with the university. It was nothing that they've done wrong. It was nothing that we've done wrong. It's just a necessity for where the event is at now.
And also that time of year as well.
Yeah, the other option as well was, everyone says, well, why would you not do it in December again at the university on a smaller scale? We couldn't, because when we deal with the university, it's multiple different people, and they'd actually booked a section of the university for various different musicals and theatre plays. So straight away, we would lose our talk halls, we would lose the entry, all that aspect of the event is gone, and it's very difficult. That shows, and that's in no disrespect to the university at all, because they've been very accommodating, as best they can. But that shows the difference in a venue that's purpose built, I guess, because we're kind of vying for the attention of multiple different people, and it just takes one person to book one thing out, and it throws the whole event into chaos then.
Yeah.
So to lose the entry in the talk halls is just an impossible thing to, we then have to get more marquees in. There's no other options. There's talk theatres in the library, but they hold a tenth of the main talk halls. So there's just nothing tangible to say, yeah, we'll stay here and do this. And it would be a discredit to the show. It would be a discredit to the attendees. you know, as I say, we want to put on the best show we can possibly do, and that wouldn't be that. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's that the answers that you've given already does already answer Madam Bella Cosplay's question, as basically asking, do you think you'll keep the Wrexham venue for maybe a smaller convention? I think that is what you're saying, that it would be taking 2 steps back from what you've grown and developed into already. I think it's a very awkward position to be in, but you've had to make the move that you've had to make.
Yeah, it's difficult because when you have that level of demand, you then, if we went back and said, hey, we're going to do a smaller show, more people are potentially going to miss out because we've grown to the point now. If we turn around and say, hey, we're going to do a small show, we're going to cap it at 10
We're going to
pounds.
sell less tickets. Yeah.
Yeah. It means straight away you're going to disappoint a potentially huge part of your audience, potentially half, you know. As much as I would do, I've looked at putting other shows on locally, different shows. I've looked at, you know, here, there, and everywhere in the local, not just Rex, and other places nearby. I've looked at the options. In honesty, I haven't wanted to take more in terms of workload than the 2 shows we already have. That's just me again, down to my health, and that was just a personal choice. Because if I overload and you know, that's it then.
That makes sense.
So it's trying to manage the load that you can do, whilst putting the best show on and not disappointing people. We knew going into it that not everyone was going to be happy. We knew that for a fact. We didn't quite think it would go as far as it went. I mean, you know, global press took up. We were on the BBC, we were on the ITV, everything. It was everywhere.
Price of being popular, man. Price of being popular.
Yeah, it was more to do with the fact that it was like, oh my God, Wales in England, you know. And it was, if you read it, it's the takeover. That's the brand. But anyways, and that's the way we look at it. The takeover is essentially the event now, brought to you by Wales Comic Con. Look at it like that, and then there's no real issue. So.
That makes sense. You've got Andrew Dickinson as well that's saying, having been to the IPMS, which is a model making show, a couple of times at the venue, Telford has a lot of potential, which is an interesting way of putting it, Andrew, that's using the word potential. I mean, at the end of the day, the Telford venue, is it something that you see yourself growing into, or is it something that is currently the best fit for your show at this point?
Again, just to reiterate what we spoke about earlier, it's certainly the best fit at
Right
this
now
time for where we're at. We have taken 2 out of the 3 main halls with the luck to expand, depending on the numbers. You've got to go in there with, you know, a set and realistic expectation. You can't go in and say, hey, we're going to get the same numbers we had at Wrexham. You can't. You've got to be reserved about it to a degree. That's not to say you're not going to have headline names, because some of the names that are currently in talks and in contracts are right up there with the people that we had at the last show. So that element is coming. It's just managing that expectation level of what numbers we're going to get, but then having the nice option to expand. So at the moment, a little insight is we've got 2 out of the 3 main halls. If we expand to that, we're going to have all 3 halls. We're going to have the talk theatre upstairs, which will be open for the entirety. So that, I believe, is about 1,500 seats. We then got the 3 suites at the end of the ground floor. I'm doing all this from memory at the moment. And those divide up into 3. So it'll be 2, at the current time, 2 photo studios with the print section in the middle. And there's so many breakout rooms for different options, different opportunities, you know, whether we do stuff with the comic side of things or the cosplay or the gaming or whatever, anything like that. There's so much that, as you say, there's so much opportunity there. There's so much scope, which we've never had before. So it's then trying to find the balance of doing something different, which it's going to be, because it isn't in the university, it's not in Wrexham, it's going to be different, but keeping that uniqueness which we had. And it's trying to essentially catch that lightning in a bottle again, that bring that magic that was Wales Comic Con, because it was always been seen as a different show kind of thing.
I think the attendees this year, if anything, they're going to, I mean, they'll have concerns, they'll have issues, they'll feel that they've been displaced from their home base, as it were, and then they'll discover there's actually a venue which actually has restrooms available a little bit closer and more of them. So I think they'll see that there's
And a roof.
and a roof, which is always a bonus. Absolutely. You've got Omar Hasser on the chat who really makes the point. Sometimes you just outgrow a venue. It's not personal, but it can be a necessity to move to a new place for growth. Us nerds just don't like change, so we complain. So no, that makes total sense. That's really cool. I want to talk about the guests because obviously that is going to be the big draw to get people to Telford. So I mean, who's in place at the moment that you really want to shine a spotlight on for your current signed guests?
You mean the ones already announced?
Already announced, yeah.
Already announced. In terms of the art guests, I'm so happy that John Howe is coming back. That harks back to my Lord of the Rings fandom. I actually went to the hotel and sat down with him and had a rare opportunity to actually speak with him before the show, the last one. And he was just so humble about it. And he said he didn't really get many invites to shows these days. And I was just absolutely baffled as to why. And we flew him over, and it was just amazing to have him as part of the show. And then as soon as the last one was over, I mentioned the next one, knowing that potentially we were on the move. And he said, yeah, absolutely. And was up for it straight away and signed up on the dotted line. I'm also excited about Phil Jimenez coming over for the first time. I spoke to Phil many years ago. He was arranged to come over and couldn't make it. He was teaching in New York, so he had commitments on the Friday and Monday, I believe. So it made it really difficult to get to the UK. That is a really cool one. Other than that, oh goodness, now you're catching me off guard. James Masters, always a pleasure at the show. I think this is like the third or fourth time that James has been to the show, and Buffy has been a huge part of our diet as an event. Absolutely humongous part of our diet, and we had a huge lineup last December, I think it was, for that one. So yeah, that's an exciting part. And we just announced the voice cast from the X-Men cartoon from the 90s, and everyone's like, all the people that know, and they loved it. And I was like, as soon as the opportunity came knocking, I was like, this is one that I just have to look at. And yeah, we signed them up. So that's a crazy. There's all sorts. There's all sorts of levels. Like the kid from Jumanji who knew that he was the voice of the Cup in Beauty and the Beast. I didn't know that, and I'm a huge Disney fan. So to find that out, it was just crazy. So yeah, there's little aspects, and you go up and down the list. Again, a wrestling fan. I love working with the WWE. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I always have been, and that's just another element that people say, why is that at a Comic Con? And I go, you can like comics and you can like other things. Just go and enjoy the event for why you want to enjoy it.
Oh, we appear to have lost picture. Have we lost sound? Are you there?
I'm here still. Yeah,
oh,
I think
okay.
it's going into low power mode, which is a bit frustrating. But
we'll make it quick then before your battery completely dies.
There you go. But yeah, just enjoy the events for what you want to enjoy them for. Basically, that's the simple task when going is make of it what you want to make of it. If you want to go there and enjoy the cosplay, then enjoy the cosplay. If you want to go there and check out the video games or the promos or the free stuff in Trading Card Alley, then go and do that. If there's an artist that you want to meet or ask to say, hey, can you sketch this for me? And then go home with like that favorite Gambit piece, then do that. If there's someone you want to meet from a movie that's either finishing off a collection or someone that you've always never dreamed would do a signing, or if it's someone, that you've met 10 times before, then go and do that. Just enjoy it. That is what you should do at these events.
Absolutely. I mean, I knew about the X-Men animated cast because I'm friends with the Leewalds, who are the original showrunners for the animated series, and they were very thrilled to hear that they were coming to the UK. So no, because they keep a close eye on everyone who was involved in the original crew. So yeah, very excited about that. You've also got a couple of people because you've got Into the Blue Mister. Basically, is that they missed Carl Urban. So fingers crossed that he's going to be back. And you've got Stuart Hunt as well. Personally, I'm always on the lookout for OG Power Rangers, Harry Potter cast, and wrestling guests. Any plans to get any of those guests this time around?
Yes. Hang on, what was it? Harry Potter.
So it was original Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Wrestling. Yeah.
I mean, wrestling we've already got.
There you go.
And the other two, yes and yes.
There you go. You see, it's all about ticking the boxes, and it really helps when you are, like you say, providing as much of an experience as you possibly can. I think we'll give one last question, and then we'll kind of wrap things up, and we'll say thank you very much indeed for coming. But this is a question from Kasia asking, when will the details of accessibility tickets be available for those with disabilities? It's a good question, because we do get a lot of people asking about disability accessibility at a convention, and I think it's something that more cons are getting more conscious of and accommodating.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we are, again, there's a lot of different things in terms of detail that we're having to go through with the venue, as it's a different one. They will be going online. I don't want to say shortly because that's such a cop out. But once we finalize the details with the venue of what we can list in it, essentially, it will be announced and put online. We're going to make sure that people don't miss out. So if, say, people with accessibility want to get an early bird ticket, they want to purchase that VIP ticket, then we will accommodate that. So nobody's going to miss out. If accessibility is not online, when things sell out, we will accommodate it so people can get what they want.
Fair enough. I mean, I was being glib earlier about the restrooms at the convention centre, but accessibility, that is actually built into the design of these buildings, so it's going to be a lot easier. If you were a regular attendee of when it was at Wrexham, you're going to see a change, especially if you are needing those facilities. So there you go. I'm excited to see what you continue to bring. It's a long way off between now and the actual show. Plenty of time for you to announce some more exciting guests. Already the lineup is pretty damn impressive for any convention. So as always, Wales really does pull out all the stops. Jamie, thank you very much indeed for joining us today and to talk us through what your plans for the Telford takeover. Where's the best place for people to get the newest and freshest information direct from the source, as it were?
The quickest way to get everything, if you want announcements, it will always be Facebook and Twitter. If you want ticket details, just go to the website, walescomiccon.com, and then hit the buy tickets tab in the top right, I believe. I'm thinking of my computer screen. Early bird for Saturday and Sunday is about to sell out. So anyone that is contemplating that, you need to get one now, because we are down to the last sort of 15 of those ones. And then VIP for Saturday, Sunday, Saturday and weekend, beg pardon, is also about to go. And yeah, just can't thank people enough. Those that have already purchased tickets, those that are showing support online, everything, the positive vibes are flowing. And yeah, we just cannot thank people enough for supporting us, because it's a big thing. You know, it's a big thing for us as an event. It's a big thing for us as a company, and it's a big thing just look as a whole. It's a huge change, but we're up for the challenge, and we're up for still being that staple part of everyone's convention diet every year. So we bring it in the spring and we close it out at Christmas. So
brilliant stuff. As always, we'll do what we can to support the Convention Collective as well. We'll announce what we can on our social medias. We'll try and support you as much as we possibly can, because it is one of the biggest shows that we have here in the UK. And I think that's something to be incredibly proud of. Jamie, you've done hero's work, sir. Well done. To you and the team, listen, thank you very much indeed for joining us today and for talking to us about Telford Takeover.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. And I will speak to you soon.
Excellent stuff. Jamie, thank you very much indeed. And we will let him get off. I'm sure he'll hang up in his own time, and we'll let him enjoy the rest of his Sunday. Jamie Milner, thank you very much indeed for coming. Right, so there you go. Once again, if you do want to find out more about the show, do head to walescomiccon.com. They are continuing to roll out all the announcements, and they do go out pretty regular on all of the social medias. So when they do drop on Twitter, they usually are dropping up on Facebook. They're dropping off on all the website as well. They are pretty good on their communication. That's what I've always been very impressed about. So Kaja is saying, always loving to see Matt Ryan, never gets stale. Yeah, well, that's absolutely right. That's fantastic. You've also got a whole bunch of people that have joined us. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to join us for this particular show. If it's the first time joining us for Talkin Con, hopefully you'll come back and see us again. Andrew English is saying already got his ticket for Telford Takeover. Yeah, I'm excited to see what the actual show does. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Right, I think it's only fair that in our final 10 minutes, then let's just dive into some of the big news of the week, especially when it comes to the San Diego show. We're less than 4 weeks, so about 24 days to go between now and the big show in the West Coast. So let's talk about a couple of the things that have dropped this week. Obviously, the big news is about the exhibit floor. A couple of things that have come off the back of that is how the floor has been redesigned, or at least moved around, especially with a couple of companies making some changes to the attendance of the show. Let's have a quick look at some of the highlights for that, if you could just bear with me a second. Don't forget, if you do want to find out the quickest or the most information about San Diego Comic-Con, do head yourself to the website comic-con.com. But let's see if I can find this update, because there is a number of things that have changed around, especially when it comes to Marvel, when it comes to Dark Horse as well. Yeah, it's really looking very impressive with the way that the floor has been changed, with the way that the companies are changing their priorities. DC has been the big one that's made the most movement, of course, but companies are kind of doing their best to kind of accommodate and change. So you've got Image taking DC's spot on the floor. IDW is taking Image, and Factory Entertainment has moved IDW. So they've kind of moved around in a clockwise circle. It's interesting about DC's booth spot, because DC obviously have made a big announcement this week that they are going to be folding one of their big classic staples, which is Vertigo, and that's going to be that was always a little bit of a strong corner of the DC booth. What they're going to actually do with their DC booth this year, and with the way that the comics landscape is going to change right in the center of the exhibit floor, is going to be very strange. But Image, it's interesting to see that they are growing to the point where they can take that DC spot and moving around. IDW moving around to take IDW. Factory taking IDW's spot. That was not a small space. Factory Entertainment did always have a booth which was two-tier, and that did kind of lead to a little bit of a cramped space, because it was all kind of controlled around the scaffolding to get everything up onto a tier for more the business Skype. I suspect that Factory are going to do their best to make it more about the attendees, and to actually showcase some stuff for people on the ground floor, as it were. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a strange time, certainly for Factory Entertainment. So I think that's pretty cool. Sorry, Dan Berry has just reminded me, it was indeed, it's comic-con.org. You're absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed for that. But DCWB is the big move, and moving to the corner, which should now make that flow a little bit easier. Thank you very much indeed for Andrew Dickinson for jumping that through as well. Yes, Dan Berry was telling us all about that. That's where I know, that's where I'm looking. So thank you very much indeed. Dan also did point out something, because he's been talking to a couple of companies about what their plans are for San Diego Comic-Con, and one of the companies which we're both big fans of did used to take up space at the Shack down on the Bayfront. And all of a sudden, the name of the company has just dropped completely out of my head. It was the company that does a lot of. It's basically a crowdfunding entertainment company, and I can't understand why it's lost out of my head. I'm sure Dan is typing as fast as he possibly can at this point and letting me know. It is Legion, of course it is. Legion M have been become quite a big component of San Diego Comic-Con, even if it's not inside the convention center. They have turned around and said that they are not going to be in that location this year, but they do have something a lot bigger and a lot cooler on the horizon. What that means, we don't know. Could that actually be perhaps a flaw of the Omni, perhaps, like we've had in recent years with the VR stuff? Maybe they are doing something a little bit stronger with what Legion M are bringing to San Diego Comic-Con. They've got plenty of stuff coming down the pipe, especially when it comes to gaming and also comics as well, and tying into the multimedia aspect. It's not just about the films. So I think they are still a company to pay very close attention to. So that's pretty cool. Andrew Dickinson has reminded me that the chocolate bar lineup has been announced for this year. Yes, indeed. If you don't get the chance to get one of these things, I collected all of them as much as I possibly could last year, and each and every one of them very, very cool indeed. So yeah, do check them out. They are going to be available in a food court just on the outside of Ballroom 20, opposite the sales. So they do sell out quickly as well. So if you get the chance, get there pretty much first day as well. Danbury, yes, and I'm getting there. Dan is now really keeping. He's definitely keeping an eye on me. I appreciate it very much indeed. Let's have a look at this. Andrew Dickinson is saying, anything announced about the car park next to Petco? That is still going ahead. It is something that Grand Designs are very proud of. They've already announced that they are going to be doing something with the that space, and it is the experience, or the SDCC experience, or the experience at SDCC. That's the correct title for it, because it's not officially sanctioned by CCI, but it has become a major component again on the other side of the Petco Park car park, and also on the other side of the Harbor Drive Bridge, and it is a massive space. People were just starting to learn how that space was working by the end of last weekend, the last days of the weekend last year. And I think even the company themselves were starting to work out how the flow of people was working. That I think they're going to improve on this year. They're going to get more brands in. Brands they turned around and said that last year did not want to take part because they didn't know how the whole thing was going to work. But they've seen it. They've seen it as a working brand. So I think you're going to be seeing a very much an expanded and very high profile experience SDCC in that Petco Park area. They have agreed, they have said that that is happening. We are now just waiting on floor plans, and we're also waiting on just announcement on who's going to be there. Speaking of which, we have been talking on the chat about when we're going to be seeing about panels. That I suspect is going to be as of next weekend. That's when we're going to officially start to get news of the official CCI dates, times over the course of the weekend. So do pay attention to social media, because I think you're going to be starting to hear about when those are going to get announced, and it's going to happen pretty damn soon. So I think you're looking at next week. We have had one or two rumblings about when that's going to be, and we think it's going to be next weekend. So yeah, you're going to be finding out about preview night on the Wednesday, and then you're going to go Thursday to Thursday, Friday for Friday, and by next weekend we should be able to talk nicely and confidently about what you can expect to see at San Diego Comic-Con, especially as usually on this show, as we go live, the Sunday panels do get announced, so we get the full roster. So we'll see what gets announced for the Sunday, which has proven to be an incredibly strong day. Last year, Doctor Who and Legion taking over Hall H and doing great guns in that particular room. But we'll see how it's going to go. Kevin Smith has been confirmed Hall H for late Thursday. That is going to be a Jay and Silent Bob panel. He's also been announced that he is going to be returning for his usual Q&A session, his usual riff at the end of Saturday. But we have yet to find out what is going to be that last Saturday panel. At the end of the day, people are fingers crossed that it's going to be the return of Marvel. but we have yet to find out. I kind of did a little bit of speculating myself that I did feel that it was going to be more of a celebration of the last 10 years. Off the back of the amazing success of Endgame, and I think they're still going to possibly want to keep ramping that up. You know, come out of that panel, go and see Endgame again, please, because we want to beat the Smurfs. Please go and check out the film. But I then think you're going to get something at the back end of that panel where it's going to be the ramp up for Phase 4 and what you're going to expect down the line. I don't think they're going to go too hard in terms of speculations, in terms of here's what we've got planned for the next 2-3 years. Here's the timeline for the films coming. The last time they did that, they stuck Inhumans in there. They had a Spider-Man film, which they then changed because of their deal with Sony. I don't think they want to get burnt with that again. Kevin Feige certainly won't. So I think they're only going to announce what is going to be actually fixed. Whether you're actually going to get cast, where you're going to get something like that, but I think you'll probably get a lot of very vague CG-produced teaser trailers and possibly some title cards as well. That's what I'm suspecting if Marvel, fingers crossed, return to Hall H. He and Andrew Dickinson confirming that Kevin Smith is going to be doing a show with Mark Bernardin. I don't see why they shouldn't. At the end of the day, Batman Beyond is still, or Fatman Beyond, sorry, is still one of the most popular shows on the interwebs, and their show from the Scum and Villainy Cantina is well worth checking out on YouTube, of course. Omar Hassa. Is the panel on Thursday, or was it announced late last Thursday? No, it is actually the Thursday panel. It's one of the Thursday programmings, but it's how those slots are going to all come together, and that will get confirmed next weekend. Someone else further up the chat earlier on today did talk about merch. This has been particularly late, and it's quite right that we should have had the details of merch by now. I seem to remember one of the first things I ever posted about San Diego Comic-Con when I first launched an Englishman in San Diego.com back in the day. It was about the merch, and this was 2-3 months ago. We knew what we were getting. We haven't had that yet, and we're so close to the show. We have had, of course, that official piece of artwork for the souvenir guide, the Jim Lee Rat Round, which was announced at the back end of last week, which is a very, very pretty piece indeed, featuring characters from across the company divide. So DC, Image, and Marvel featured on there, and I believe some IDW characters as well. So I think the Jim Lee piece is very, very cool indeed. But that, in terms of, is going to possibly feature on a poster or a print, very much like we had with Mondo last year. I think we're going to have that as merch. I think we're going to be seeing the Tiki mugs back again. Do not ask me why. I have no idea. I think you're going to get a very similar lineup of the merch as you got for 2018. And I suspect that's going to drop tomorrow. So keep your eyes open on your social media. Thank you. Omar Hassa, I think the Funko Toucan might go on sale with the merch, and that might be the holdup. That could be an interesting idea, perhaps, but they've announced the Toucan Funko already. So I think, no, I don't know how that works in terms of an actual holdup, because they've announced it. The rights are already there. So no, I'm curious to see about that. Super Cat Chick saying, I need that Toucan. So do I. Don't go out and buy one especially, but I wouldn't mind. I'll have to look on eBay afterwards. But there we go. Yeah, it's gorgeous, isn't it? The Pez, not so much, but the Funko is very nice. I also quite like the Batman Funko, even though it is the most bizarre thing. A Batman with a bag with a CCI logo on it. Okay. Fair enough. If that's as tenuous as you want to get, fine. Although I did see the announcement as well, there's going to be a Batman Damned Pop Funko as well. I'm a fan of Batman Damned as a comic, actually. I think the actual book that's been done by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bijema is very nice indeed, but an actual Funko of it, and I think that could have possibly been saved for as an exclusive, perhaps. We have had also, I'm going to find the picture. It was on Instagram. The Funko Pop Hunters did find a pretty much a map of the announced Funkos, and also where they're being shared at. And I was quite surprised to see how much is being shared If you are wanting these Funkos, and if you're not that bothered about an official CCI badge or a limited edition San Diego Comic-Con badge, these things are going to be available. They're going to be out there. They're going to be in the wild. So yeah, it's just depending on how much of a collector you're wanting to be. I think the other thing as well that's kind of being a little bit late as well is the this week is going to be a swamp of news, I suspect, because like I think we're going to be getting the panel announcements next week. We're going to be getting the merch tomorrow. At some point, they have to announce the lottery, and they have to get that out ASAP. I suspect that's going to happen in the middle of the week. This is going to be a big week for San Diego Comic-Con, for fans and for all of the putting the final elements into place. And those, for me, are a couple of the big ones: the merch and the actual the lottery as well. Which, how that's going to roll out, because last year, if you remember, they put the lottery out first as the Mondo print, almost just to test the waters, to let people know exactly how the lottery system worked. If they did that with the Jim Lee print first, that might give them that kind of everyone learning curve if you didn't take part in the lottery last year. And also we have found as well that they are going to be doing a points system as well. So people need to learn this thing kind of all over again. So how that's going to work, we'll soon find out. Michael P, have they announced the winner of any contests? As far as I'm aware, no. People have been kind of paying attention to the contests, the lotteries, all of the various giveaways that have been announced. Certainly the Omaze stuff, that hasn't been announced yet. Super Cat Chick, I had seen something about additional tickets for the screening party for the new Amazon show Carnival. Carnival Row, sorry, but it seems that all the info is gone now. Yes, that kind of jumped up online very, very quickly. And a number of these events have gone on kind of unannounced and very fast, almost like they're just expecting us to just ride the wave of social media and just anyone who's not really glued to this is very much on the missing out. I think the best example of that was the announcement for the boys screening that was announced on Friday night, and as far as I'm aware, was sold out within the space of 10-15 minutes. This is how fast this is the metabolism of San Diego Comic-Con. It really is just quite impressive. So Danbury, Horton Plaza is a ghost town now. Only 5 stores left. Don't get me started about that place. Admittedly, I think that was one of the things I said to Caroline. If I ever did win the national lottery, I would be buying the Horton Plaza in a heartbeat, either turning it into condos or something, or just using that space. It's just such a shame that is just a waste of a bloody good building, or a perfectly decent land somewhere in the center of downtown. What a shame, what a waste. But there we go. Subkachik, I got a ticket for the boys, even though I've already seen the first episode. It'll be fun. Yes, it's not that far away now. It's coming out shortly. So yeah, it's coming out on Amazon Prime here in the UK, and I'm fingers crossed because it's very possibly going to be my new favorite show. I am a fan of the original book. A big Garth Ennis fan anyway, and yeah, it's certainly not for the faint of heart. If they follow even just a remote kind of element of what the comic is like, it's going to be brutal, it's going to be very sweary, and it ain't going to be for the kiddies. But yeah, if you are going along to see, or if you've managed to get yourself a ticket for the boys for the screening party, if you are of a delicate nature, we will expect to see your fainted body outside on line as well. So there we go. Let's have a look at what else has been announced this week. I know the Hasbro stuff, that all happened last weekend. I wasn't particularly thrilled with much of it. I did quite like the Ghostbusters Transformers item, but that is something that it kind of like stood out from that particular Hasbro sale. The rest of it didn't exactly float my boat, but if you are a fan, I'm certain that you tried your best to get onto that Hasbro sale, and it did prove a little bit problematic for some people. 1 or 2 technical issues, but they did iron it out as best they could. And it was just a case of getting as much as they could. The other two things as well that I wanted to talk about is about the branding of San Diego Comic-Con, especially around the downtown area. You have got the banners going that have gone up already, and they are filtering around the rest of the city, and it's all Avengers Endgame themed. It is back to Marvel, who sponsor the banners, and they are desperate to break that ceiling, reissuing the film with additional content, and desperately trying to get as many people to watch the film and break Avatar's record. But fingers crossed. The other branding as well, of course, are the San Diego trolleys. We have been told by someone at SDMTS that it is going to be a mammoth rollout of wraps for these particular items. I believe that 50 was the number 50 was touted. It's just going to be it's just going to be everywhere. And if anything, yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of different shows, a lot of properties being represented. You've already got SpongeBob upon the couple of the trolleys. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the same things every single time you see a trolley roll by. It's going to be something new and different every single time that you look at a trolley going through downtown. So there's lots and lots to see. Excuse me. And last but not least, oh, excuse me, I am going to actually have to take a drink. Bear with me a second. Last but not least, and this is something I want to kind of leave to last, because I still think the two biggest things that have been contributed by the city to San Diego Comic-Con to allow the attendees to get the absolute most of their conventions. Number one is the 24-hour free shuttles, which, as we know now, it's not a true 24-hour free shuttle. Swings and roundabouts, I'm afraid, but at least you can get around. And of course, what they have done with the front of the convention center on Harbor Drive. The news again, there's come out this week that they are closing Harbor Drive once again as a large shuttle stop, which will allow shuttles to come down the front of the convention center and basically loop around and use the east end of the convention center as a huge shuttle stop. All transport, civilian transport cars, whatever, will be stopped at the other side of the tracks and deviated down the east. So it's the western side has been turned into the actual shuttle stop. Then the traffic is filtered down to the east, going down Harbor Drive and continuing to the site of the harbor. So it is very cool for that to be re-implemented. If anything, also to move the shuttles down onto the front of the convention center, onto Harbor Drive, opening up that entire walkway in front of the convention center into one large pedestrian spot. We didn't know how it was going to work last year. The convention center certainly didn't know how it was going to work last year. Gil Cabrera, with myself, we kind of looked at the whole thing when it all opened up, and it just worked. It was it's certainly not as crowded as we expected it to be. We didn't know how it was going to all kind of get all congested in places. It just kind of worked, and it was one of the best things that I thought they had done, and I'm glad to see that they're reintroducing it again. Omar Hassa has pointed out something as well, which was pointed out to me by someone on social media when they asked about the actual implementation of that, and especially for those in wheelchairs or in any kind of walkers. I think it really is a case of, please do keep an eye on people with those disabilities. Help them where they can, because they're there to enjoy themselves as much as you are. Please accommodate them and allow them to get through the crowds, and just help them have as much fun a time as you are. The advice that was given to somebody when they spoke to me about this subject was just learn how to bellow very, very loudly. That's not necessarily something that you want to encourage people to have to do. So let's see if we can all kind of help as many people as possible. It's very difficult to get, let's have a look at this. We've got Omar Hassa. Loving the fact that the road is being closed, but it does make it hard to get out of the convention center parking, though. As far as I was aware, I thought that was part of the flow of going eastbound. I thought I was under the impression the parking was part of the flow of traffic. It's a shame that that's not necessarily the case. That's a shame. Right, we've got Dr. Skyhawk who's jumped in and asking a question. Anyone here park at Hilton Bayfront last year? What is the best way to get there coming from Shelter Island? That's a very good question indeed. I saw a lot of traffic trying to come down over the bridge, and obviously that just gets swung all the way back round over the bridge, or deviated up into the back ends of downtown. It's a very awkward area to come over the bridge into downtown. So no, that's a very good question. If anyone can kind of Dr. Skyhawk, if you want to put your Twitter down into the comments, and hopefully we can try and get that answered for you, because that's a very good question indeed. Omaha the ferry. This is probably the best way. Yes, that's a slightly facetious answer, but you're possibly right on that one. So yeah, Dr. Sky, here we go. EBELM, so ABLM. Okay, if you want to contact them, I'll keep an eye on that particular Twitter handle as well. And yeah, let's see if we can answer that question for you, because yeah, it's a very good point to kind of have that whole area, the movement of traffic, everything from downtown and from Gaslamp, and kind of accommodating all of that coming in from the west. It's not the same. It doesn't accommodate as much. We'll see if we can get some answers for you on that one. Right, it's 15:15, so we can wrap up the show now. Like I say, I think this week is going to be a big week for San Diego Comic-Con attendees. We got ISIS. This is my call. If I'm wrong, by all means, shout at me. That's what I'm on social media for. Shout at me all you like. I believe you're going to get merch on Monday. You're going to get word about the lotteries for exclusives on either Tuesday or Wednesday. And then from Thursday onwards, we're going to be getting panels. It's going to be a big week because we're getting closer and closer. And I think you're going to blink twice and it's going to be here. But that's where we are. That's where we are. Omaha exclusive lotto portal goes live this week. There you go. It's just, let's have a look at this. Unofficial blog got the info from someone at Lego who's in the lotto. It's their last San Diego Comic-Con Concast. Ah, okay. Oh, it's on their last one. Fair enough. So there you go. They got it for officially. I just speculated. What can you do? I can just guess as best as I can. I haven't had the chance to listen to the Concast in the last couple of episodes because I've been too busy wrapped up with prom DJing, which is why I'm feeling a little bit fried around the edges, because I'm very tired. But that's the way of the world, I'm afraid. Do take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. We are going to do our best to get a special guest for next week to talk about the panels. So please do join us, and let's see if we can really get into the putting together of the final pieces of the San Diego Comic-Con jigsaw puzzle for next week. Thank you very much indeed for your company. We'll see you soon. Next week, of course, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT for another Talkin Con with a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. Head down below, hit subscribe, hit the notifications. It tells you when we go live. And also follow us on social media at an Englishman SDCC, and also the Con Collective as well on Twitter. We'll do our best to share as much information as we possibly can on those accounts for the big show. Not that far away now. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Perth Supernova next week. Hopefully we'll a little bit of a live report from Perth next week. Who knows? Andrew, have yourself a great time, sir.